Hello everybody, today we are going to talk about writing a hypothesis. You are going to want to have your INB open in another tab, and you are going to want to be looking at slide number 19. On slide number 19, you will see that you have two pages, a left side page and a right side page of hypothesis Cornell notes. Everything that we talk about in this video is on slide 19 in your INB. And most of the notes are already written for you. Every time you see a stop sign in this video, you need to pause the video and then go do whatever the stop sign is asking you to do on slide 19 in your INB. Okay? So anytime you see a stop sign, stop the video, go to slide 19 in your INB, and follow the directions next to the stop sign. All right, here we go. So as you will see at the top of slide 19, the top of your hypothesis Cornell notes, you will see an essential question. And the essential question for this set of notes is, what is a hypothesis and how do I write one? So we're going to be talking about what a hypothesis is. We're going to define the word, and then we are also going to talk about how to write one. Okay, so what is a hypothesis? A hypothesis is an educated guess. Okay, or a prediction. You can think of a hypothesis as a prediction that a scientist makes before doing an experiment. Okay, it's standard practice for a scientist to make an educated guess or a prediction before they actually do their experiment. A good hypothesis is based on background information that describes the results that the scientist expects to find. Now, this background information can come from maybe some research you did using Google. It might come from personal experiences you've had in your life, but the prediction that you make or the prediction that the scientist makes should be based on some sort of logic, some sort of background information. It should not just be a random guess, okay? And again, the hypothesis should include a very clear picture of the results that the scientist expects that they will get when they do the experiment. A good hypothesis must be written in a specific way, and we will talk about that next. Okay, how do I write a hypothesis? A hypothesis is usually written as an if, then, because statement. If, then, because. Okay? After the if is where you want to talk about your independent variable, and we're going to use the color blue for the independent variable. After the then, you usually want to make a prediction about your dependent variable, and we're going to use pink for the dependent variable. Then you're going to follow this with the word because, and then you're going to provide a reason, okay, or some background research about why you made this prediction. And we're going to color code that in green. Okay, so let's talk about how to turn a testable question into a hypothesis, into a prediction. So when you see a testable question, right, the first step is to identify the independent variable and the dependent variable in that question. So for example, let's look at this testable question right here, okay? How does the amount of water you give a tree affect how tall the tree grows? Well, in this testable question, we know it's testable because there's an independent variable, which is the amount of water, right? That's the IV. And we know there's a DV, right? The DV is how tall the tree grows, okay? So the independent variable is the amount of water, and the dependent variable is how tall the tree grows. Okay, that is our IV and our DV in this question. So now step 2 is to make a mental prediction. So before you write anything down, just think to yourself for a second, what will happen to the dependent variable if the independent variable increases? So in other words, if the amount of water goes up, what do you think is going to happen to how tall the tree grows? Is it going to get taller? Is it going to get shorter? Just think about it. You could also think about it the other way, right? What if it decreases? So I'm going to erase this real quick, okay? You could also think about it this way. What if the amount of water goes down? What if you decrease the amount of water? Then what's going to happen to how tall the tree grows? Is it going to go up? Is it going to get taller? Is it going to go down? Is it going to get shorter? So think about it for a second. Just make a little mental prediction about the relationship between these two things. Okay, now we're ready for step 3. Once you've made your mental prediction, now you're going to start writing your hypothesis, and you're going to start with the word if, and then you're going to follow this with your independent variable, okay? And then you're going to continue your hypothesis with the word then, and then you're going to make a prediction about the dependent variable. So I think an example will really help here. So let's go back to the original testable question. How does the amount of water, right, that's our IV, that you give a tree affect how tall the tree grows? How tall the tree grows is our dV, okay? How does the amount of water, IV, that you give a tree affect how tall the tree grows? Our dV. So when we go to write a hypothesis, when we go to write a prediction, we're going to start with if, and then we're going to talk about our independent variable. If a tree receives more water, IV, then it will grow taller. Okay, that's our dV. Okay. If a tree receives more water, then it will grow taller. So we talked about our independent variable, and then we made a prediction about what would happen to our dependent variable. You could also write this the other way around. You could say, if a tree receives less water, then it will grow shorter, right? It doesn't matter which way you write it. It's totally up to you. Also, your hypothesis does not need to be correct. It's okay if your hypothesis, if your prediction ends up being wrong. Okay, that's okay. I'm not grading you based on whether or not your hypothesis is correct or not. I'm grading you based on whether or not you can write a hypothesis. Okay. Step 5 is to finish your hypothesis with the word because and then the reason or background information that you have that supports your prediction. Okay, so here we have that same testable question. How does the amount of water you give a tree affect how tall the tree grows? And we had written if a tree receives more water, so if independent variable, then it will grow taller, then dependent variable, okay, because, and then we need to give our reason. And the reason here is trees require water to make the food they need to grow. Okay, so I did a little bit of background research and I learned that plants make their own food and they need water to do that. So the reason that I think more water will give me a taller plant is because I know that trees require water to make the food they need to grow. This is my reasoning. This is my because statement in green. Okay, so let's try one on your own here. So let's look at this practice hypothesis. You will see in your notes, in your hypothesis notes on slide 19, you will see this testable question right here. How does cleaning your hands affect the amount of mold that develops on a piece of bread? Okay, and this should seem like a very familiar question because you're actually doing an experiment right now to test this at home. So what I want you to do, you can even pause the video for a second if you want. You don't have to write anything down. I just want you to think for yourself. In this question, what is the independent variable in this inquiry question and what is the dependent variable in this question? And then I want you to just think in your head, if you were going to write a hypothesis, what would it look like? If independent variable, then what would happen to the dependent variable? Because, and then think of a reason for your prediction. So just pause the video for a second and just think to yourself, what would your hypothesis look like? How would you write your hypothesis? Okay. So here's an example, okay? In this question right here, our independent variable is how you clean your hands, okay? And our dependent variable is the amount of mold that develops on the bread. So how does cleaning your hands, independent variable, affect the amount of mold, dependent variable, that develops on a piece of bread? So now we're going to use this independent variable and this dependent variable to write a prediction, to write a hypothesis, okay? If I wash my hands, it's my independent variable, then less mold, it's my dependent variable, will develop on my piece of bread because, and then my reason is, I won't have as many germs on my hands when I handle the bread. Okay? That's my reason. That's my reason or my background info. Okay? Background info. So let's look at that again. If I wash my hands, independent variable, then less mold, dependent variable, will develop on my piece of bread because, and then I happen to know that when I wash my hands, I don't have as many germs on my hands when I handle things. Okay, so that's my reason. This is my reason why I think washing my hands will produce less mold. Okay, you could also write this the other way around. You could say, if I don't wash my hands, then more mold will develop on my piece of bread because I will have more germs on my hands when I handle it. Okay, both of those would be fine. It doesn't matter which way you write it. So I'm going to make a little note that you could write this in the reverse. Okay, you could write this in the reverse way. Okay, and again, it doesn't even matter if your hypothesis is correct here. As long as you have a strong reason why you think what you think, as long as the green part is good, then whatever your prediction is your prediction. It doesn't have to be correct. If you wanted to say, you could even say, if I wash my hands, then more mold will develop on my piece of bread. If that's your prediction, that's fine, as long as you have a good because, a strong reason why you think what you think. Okay? All right, so you're going to see a stop sign right here. What that means is that you need to pause the video and do these 3 things. Okay? So take a look at slide 19 in your INB, the Hypothesis Cornell notes, and you are going to see this testable question in your notes on slide 19, and I want you to highlight the IV in blue, just like I did right here, and I want you to highlight the DV in pink, just like I did right here. Go ahead and highlight the IV and the DV in this question on slide 19 in your notes. And then I want you to type out the hypothesis that I wrote. So this example hypothesis, I want you to go ahead and type that out. There's a space for you to type it out. And I want you to color code the IV in blue, washing my hands, the DV in pink, less mold, and the reason in green, not as many germs. So make sure you put that in green. You can either change the text color or you can use the highlighting tool in your INB. And then for step 3, I want you to go to slide number 34 in your INB. That's the first page of the bread mold lab. And you're going to see, we already added our procedures. There's a testable question. You're going to see the variables that we filled in, and we already wrote up a procedure. But there's going to be a blank spot for you to write a hypothesis. And I would like you to write your own hypothesis for the bread mold lab and add that to slide number 34 where it says hypothesis. Okay? If you want to use my hypothesis, you can, but I think it would be good practice if you tried to write your own. All right? So go ahead and pause the video and do that, and then there's one more activity that you're going to do, so make sure to come back to the video when you're done with that. Okay, and then the last processing activity you're going to do, there's another processing activity because there's a big stop sign here. Now what I would like you to do is on slide 19 in your INB, I want you to go back through your Hypothesis Cornell notes, 2 pages, a left side page and a right side page, and highlight key vocabulary words, any important vocab words that you heard in this video and that you see on slide 19 in your INB. I want you to highlight them. And then in the left-hand column of your notes, so you're going to see in your notes you have a questions column on the left and a notes column on the right. In the questions column on the left-hand side, I want you to write 2 quiz questions about these notes. Okay, so think about if you were the teacher and you were going to give your students a quiz about hypotheses, what 2 quiz questions would you put on your test? So pretend that you were the teacher and write 2 left column questions on slide 19 in your INB. Okay, you have reached the end of the video. Thank you.